Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the ICU HBCU podcast. As you know, I am your host, Keyshawn McMiller, and today we got another good one. Friend of mine, she's a career coach. She is a rattler. I'll let her tell you more about that. Marthea Pitts, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Keyshawn, for having me on. When I saw your update about having a podcast, I'm like, I'm gonna shoot my shot. Bring me on. Let's talk about all things HBCUs. So it's a pleasure to be here with you on this beautiful Monday morning.
Of course. It is very, very beautiful here in Houston as well. And for those that don't know, just to put it out there, I was on Marthea's podcast a couple of times now, maybe a third time in the future, but I'll definitely let her chat more about what she does and how she's helping others. So let's go ahead and get into the questions, shall we? Marthea, as I said before in the opening, right, you are a rattler who attended Florida A&M University, yes?
Yes, I did.
Gotcha. Can you talk a little bit about maybe why you decided to attend? Because you didn't attend in your undergrad, you went for grad school. What was that
Right.
process like?
Yeah, so most definitely undergrad was I have an AA degree also. Both were majority serving institutions. I chose FAMU because a lot of the reason was connected to how I wanted to use my degree to serve and uplift people that look like me, because there is another major university in the city where I went to school at. But I was like, I like this program. I like what they're offering. Also, I really was interested in in the fact that the program that I went to was more geared towards, again, the admin side of the profession that I'm in, whereas the other program was focused on an entirely different area of practice.
Gotcha. And right, ultimately, of course, I understand what you mean by just the different focus areas, right? Being in social work. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean in particular, what attracted you specifically?
Yeah, let's get into it. I didn't want to bore the people with social work talk,
sure.
but so FAMU has well, there are different areas of specialization under the social work profession. So depending on how you want to use your degree in the actual workforce, you really need to be clear on the type of program that you want to be in to support that. So FAMU has an administrative focused program where it's essentially preparing you for leadership roles in like social service type organizations. Whereas the other university in the city where I lived, where FAMU is more clinical. Well, it is clinical in nature. They now have admin track to their program, but at that time it was primarily clinical. And I was like, I knew I did not want to be clinical. Clinical is where you're providing therapeutic services to people. I knew that whatever I was going to be doing with my degree, it was going to look like leadership and not necessarily therapy services. So that's how I decided on FAMU.
Yeah, no, I love it. And right, you kind of you talked about being clear. You talked about the workforce. And of course, these are a couple of buzzwords that sort of tie into, where you are and what you're doing today. But again, we'll definitely get to all that. I'm curious, though. So did you attend FAMU? Were you hybrid? Were you on campus, virtual? What did that look like?
Good question. No, I was full time. I was on campus. I'm not going to say full time. It felt like full time as a full time working adult, a full time working student rather. No, but I was part time in my program, which looked like me taking 2 courses a semester. And so essentially, when you are part time, it will take you 4 years, and it took me 4 years to complete. And so I would go on campus every day. Depending on the semester, I would have classes like on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or it was Monday and Wednesday. But I would go on campus. Well, I might be misquoting. Maybe it was 1 day a week for each course. But either way, I was on campus at least 2 days a week. And I would go in the evenings. Because it's not a program designed for working students, but if you can finesse your work schedule, you can work it around your work schedule. So I
Yeah.
would go in the evenings from like my classes would start at 4 p.m. And I think the latest class that I ever had started at like 9, 8, 8:45, but we were out at like 10 something because they were only 1 day a week. So it was at least 2 hours, two and a half hours of classroom instruction each week.
Yeah, you taught me something new. I didn't even know they had class.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know they had class that late. But yeah, I mean, like you said, you were working at the time, and going to school, so that you had to do what you had to do. So with that, right, it sounds like you had a different experience when I think, or when people typically consider the college experience. They're there in the daytime, in the morning, and so they've got a chance to experience the campus. I won't say in all of its glory, but right, it's a bit more livelier during the daytime. Did you find yourself? I mean, was that a barrier to you? Did you find yourself missing out on classic FAMU experiences that you may have wanted to go to?
now Keyshawn, I think I'm funny. Yeah, so like when people would be quoting certain stuff, y'all rattlers, I felt like
That
I was always an outsider because I don't know the quotes, I don't know the what is it? I don't want to misquote, but I don't know any of those things. So when like homecoming time would come and
yeah.
people were saying the different things, I'm like, what is that? What does that mean? How did
Mm.
y'all learn that? Well, how do you know it so well? Right? Did you have a class on it? I didn't,
Yeah.
because I didn't go to undergrad there.
Right.
Also, I didn't really understand what convocation was. What is that? Why are you? I've Googled it several different times, but still
Mm.
don't think I'm clear. So yeah, it was at times. I would say more than at times, because even now, as a alum of the university, I still don't know all of the
A whole lot.
things. Yeah.
Well, in full transparency, neither do I. I was a transfer student. I transferred in after about 2 years, and by that point, I was like, "Hey, I'm here. Let me get this degree.
Yeah.
All this other stuff. I've been there, done that." So yeah, we're in the same boat, Marthea. But that's good to know. So right, you're matriculating through your classes at Florida A&M. You are. Did you find any sort of community? Did you find any sort of village during your time in classes, or maybe outside of class? What did that look like in terms of your social life?
Yeah, most definitely. I was a part of community specific because for the most part, there were a few who weren't, but for the most part, we were all full-time working students. So based off of just that common point of interest, we established community around that and would share like best practices and strategies of how to get the work done, how to type this 20, 30 about 30-page evaluation paper and still like keep your wits about yourself while working. Um, yeah, and that was before like heavy Zoom use. This was I graduated in 2017, so it was a lot of meeting on Saturdays at the library for just like I wasn't familiar with the concept of co-working, but essentially now I do because I love co-working. But
Mm,
essentially we were co-working because there weren't a lot of tests, it was more papers. So it was a lot of co-working, but
mm,
we did have a lot of opportunities where we were working on group projects. So
okay.
we built community around that. Lots of phone calls around when is the paper due? Because again, you're juggling full time
Yeah.
work. Many people are parents, plus being a full time student. So it's a lot of like phone calls around when is that due date? What's happening there? Also, a lot of accountability support around are you clear about what two classes you're taking this semester? Have you looked at your course sequence guide in the handbook? Things like that.
Mm,
Yeah.
for sure. No, no, that's really insightful, Marthea. Um, your words about community and just co-working have me thinking about. I've been reading up on just the HBCU experience, and I was reading in a Facebook group where uh, someone posted an article about Black students in particular going to PWIs, predominantly white institutions, for medical school, and how they've been, at least what the research shows, they've seen trends of like lesser levels of success. So I think this particular person was commenting that two people they know went to a PWI for medical school, and instead of becoming doctors, they became nurses. Now, nothing against nurses. We love our nurses, right? They're very pivotal. They were pivotal during COVID-19. They're still pivotal now. But right, when I think about, wow, you wanted to become an MD, and to find success as a nurse, that's a very different track. They shared that part of it was due to the disconnect of the school, right? Maybe not having that community, that level of co-working that you talked about. And so that kind of leads me into my next question, Marthea. You talked about not necessarily being a part of the FAMU culture, right? The FAMU, as they say, in the traditional sense of what an undergrad student might get. But did you feel supported? Did you feel valued and heard as a person of color, as a Black woman? And how so?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. From the first moment when I was going through my research phase of trying to figure out which program, which university, all of the things, and I called up to the department, the School of Social Work, and spoke with Dr. Hell. Dr. Hell left shortly after I got into the program. But at that time, Dr. and she was like, yeah, come on campus and let's meet. Let's talk about address whatever questions you have. From the first phone call, I felt welcomed. And Dr. Hell really truly was, as well as Dr. Jarman and many other professors, really truly were always welcoming. And I always tell people that my HBCU experience was the best money I ever spent, because my university taught me and really truly prepared me on what I should be doing as far as a Black woman to exist in this world, not even just in my state, not the country, in this world. And it really opened my eyes to the level of like what my work needs to be. And I don't know if the College of Social Work still goes by the focus of Sankofa. Like, you are supposed to be giving back to the others, right? You don't just go and forge your own path. You're supposed to be creating opportunities for others. And it really truly, again, because at this point I was coming into my professional identity. And so I need to know what I need to be aware of, what I need to be doing as far as a Black woman. Yes, it really truly helped me with that. And really, it's the cornerstone of all of my work. My work is centered around giving back to others, ensuring that they have more opportunities than what I had. And I do that in every area of my work. Yeah, most definitely.
I love that. There's no greater feeling than when you are in a space that you feel like you belong. And so, yeah, that just brings a smile to my face. That's awesome. I want to go deeper into that piece. So you talked about some people that you met, right, in your initial calls and visits to the department, to the campus. Can you talk about maybe an impactful person who maybe became a mentor, or someone who was pivotal in your success, either as a student and up to now?
Yes, most definitely. Dr. Brenda Jarman. If you're from Tallahassee, been in Tallahassee, I saw her the other month. I know she doing good when I see that green Jeep flying down the road, because she always has some type of board of directors meeting to go to, something. So Dr. Brenda Jarman, when I met her, actually, because I love a good due diligence research. So I had already researched all of the professors, the faculty, the chair, all of the things. So when I ran across Dr. Jarman's bio and learned that she was a teen mom, which a lot of people aren't aware, I was a young mother. I had my daughter when I was 20. So to read her bio, and like where she's clearly sharing, this is her story. She had 2 children, I believe it was, and all of the wonderful things, the research and all of the larger projects, and how she travels the world and she does her work around her area of expertise. I was like, I have to meet her. Like, I need to just listen to what she has to say. And so thankfully, before she retired, I think that I know Dr. Jarman taught my statistics class and maybe another class or two. And she takes everyone under her wing. So it's not like it was just me, but I really clung close to her because she was a point of reference for me, because we had very, it wasn't just a team mom part. Like, even where she started in her frontline work as far as a case manager, like she worked with parents who were in the welfare transition program. I at that time was working in the welfare transition program. She was passionate about making certain that mothers had what they needed, young moms had what they needed to thrive and to achieve lifelong self-sufficiency. That was my mission. So when I had the opportunity to be in her class, I really clung close to her. And she has this thing, she still does it now, even as a retiree, because she still mentors everybody, where she gives you a mustard seed at the beginning of your semester. And she's like, all you need is a mustard seed size of faith, and you will make it through. And I forgot all about that mustard seed. I used to carry it in my wallet until the other day when somebody was talking to me about faith. And I was like, that's right. All I need is a little bit, because sometimes I'm questioning my faith. I'm like, that's right. I've seen how much I needed because Dr. Jarman gave me the mustard seed. So she was really pivotal. I actually interviewed her on my podcast, but she was the person that I clung to the most. Now, of course, there were others who were very foundational in my professional preparation. I always tell people about a professor who helped, like, he was the go-to person, and I don't know why his name is slipping my mind, because I usually quote it, because I would be in his class and I was like, why are we doing this? It was an evaluation class. I didn't understand it, but I tell people everything he taught us in that class I used in my first director level role outside of case management. It was a macro job. And just so people know what macro social work is where you work on systems level change work, right? Really getting to the root cause of the social issues that you see in the world. And I will be every resource, everything that he taught us in that class, I used in that role. So I say that every professor, Dr. Langley, I love quoting Dr. Langley. I will say a quote of his in a moment. Every professor really was pivotal in my professional development, but Dr. Jarman was the one that I clung the closest to.
Technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I finished my
Okay, it's still recorded. We'll just cut it up. Were you talking about Dr. Perry by chance?
Dr. Perry. How could I forget his name? Let me write that down, because that meant, he worked here. But I swear I used everything he taught us. Dr. Perry.
Yeah, that's my I connected very intentionally with him.
Yes.
Okay, now that's awesome. Dang, Dr. Perry. I need to call him. It's someone I haven't seen in a while. That just took me down memory lane.
Yeah.
Okay. So you graduated 4 years. You talked about you getting your start in social services, case management. But you made a pivot, right? You made a pivot out of case management. Can you talk a little bit about your post-grad journey and how some of the values and teachings from Florida A&M sort of inspired you to shift out of that?
Yeah, most definitely. So in my MSW degree program at FAMU, I became very interested in the conversations and the learnings that we were getting around, like, again, systems level change work, but also the origins and, like, the pioneers in social work. So I became really interested in like the whole conversation around settlement houses and why they were a thing back then. And I remember taking a class one time around, I was going to say it was around policy, but it wasn't a full-blown policy course. But in that class, we got very introductory conversations around like the roles you should be having to keep people accountable for the things that they say they're going to do. So like I learned about being a watchdog and how to really ensure that people are getting the things that they need to achieve lifelong self-sufficiency. That's the term that I use. So I walked away from my MSW degree program, even while in it, looking at my current work very differently, because I was already asking a lot of questions, but being at FAMU made me think about my work much deeper than just delivering a service one-on-one to a person. So I was already questioning why the things I was seeing was happening and why there were so many glaring differences between the region where I worked and other regions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just made me, when I graduated from FAMU, it made me think bigger. I will say that. Think bigger about my role, my career, the professional legacy that I wanted to create for myself. And so I wasn't in that case management job much long. Actually, I left that case management job while still in my MSW degree program and went to another case management adjacent role. But as soon as I graduated from FAM, which was May 2017, I already had a job lined up for a macro social work role where I served as the director of a global program serving pregnant and parenting youth. Because in the workforce development program that I was in, working as a career counselor, aka case manager, my career seekers wanted to get high school diplomas. But the way the federal law is worded, but more so the way it was being implemented in my region, did not provide them with opportunities to go get a high school diploma. And also it has a lot to do with Tallahassee just being a rural area. Like Tallahassee likes to operate like a big city, but it's essentially a rural area. So they only had the option of going to get a GED. But every day my career seekers would be like, Miss Pitts, I don't want a GED. I want a high school diploma. They wanted to finish what they started. So I set out on a mission to get into a position where I could create that opportunity for them, where they could still be a parent, they could still work full time, but they could still get their high school diploma. So I would really say that my HBCU experience was foundational in that, and really helping me to open my eyes and realize that there's much deeper work that needs to be done here, Marthea. Giving the people a bus pass and a gas card, that's okay. But how can we prevent them from coming back in here decade after decade and decade after decade? Because essentially in that program, since the creation of the actual law, I had OG caseworker colleagues who had served the grandmother. Another OG caseworker colleague had served the mother, and now I was serving the daughter. Wow. I was like, how do we stop that? And so in that role, in that case first role, that's when I began to search and really understand the larger work that my work as one person was connected to. So FAMU was key in that. And I actually will say that policy class is what opened my eyes to, my work is connected to something much bigger here. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really good. I hope that for those that are listening, and whether you want to be in social work or not, there's always a deeper mission. You can always go higher. You can always go deeper. You just got to take that first step. Right. So that's really good, Marthea. So let's talk about where you are today. Right. So you've branched out of your case management ness. I don't know. And so you ascended to higher heights, and I know you're now a successful entrepreneur. Can you talk a little bit about your business, what you focus on, and what brings you joy in it?
Yeah, most definitely. So I consider myself to be a social entrepreneur. I've essentially taken all of the work that I was doing professionally, formally, and formally in my personal life, where I'm telling friends like, "Oh, just apply over to blah blah blah," and I now have a career education consulting business where I have two sides of my business. I have a career accelerator where I help professionals who are either macro social workers or change makers, because to tie into your last point, any profession, any person can do large scale change making work.
Yeah.
So on that side of my business, I have a career accelerator. We're gearing up for enrollment into cohort 15. I've been doing this since 2020. And it has been, thank you. It has been like to see my vision birth and really coming into play, where I have change makers and a lot of industries, people in the philanthropic space, people in the environmental justice space, people in healthcare, is really tremendous. But I also have the other side where I go and I consult with corporations and helping them do like talent acquisition and retention, because overall my focus is still macro focus, like root cause. I'm still that person. So I became very intrigued with figuring out a way, how do we prevent people from coming in that workforce development center that I saw? How do we prevent people from not having access to good quality, good paying jobs? And so on the B2B side of my business, I work with corporations around, okay, what type of information do you need to give people so they can then make well-informed, better career decisions? Because corporations, people are leaving at a high rate. And based off of what I know, I'm still in the early days of my PhD candidacy, but because this is my research area of interest, I have a belief that people move from place to place or go from like one unrelated profession or career field to the next because they didn't get the requisite knowledge that they needed in middle school. Research shows that information around career exploration, like what can you do for work other than being a doctor, a nurse, a football player, whatever the thing is in your city, because it's different everywhere. Those conversations are supposed to start in middle school. So I am extremely interested in doing work where I can meet the needs of people already in the workforce. But I'm also intrigued with ensuring that students in the K through 12 space are getting the conversations that they need. That even includes, what kind of college do you want to go to? How do you align, like, okay, I want to do this for my career. What are the things you need to be looking at as far as college degree programs and paying for it and all of the different things like that? So my work really stems around ensuring that people have the correct emphasis on the word correct career information they need to make well-informed career decisions.
That's good. Y'all see how she just casually slid in there? Yeah, I'm early in my PhD candidacy. Yeah, she's gonna be Dr. Pitts pretty soon. Dr. Pitts pretty soon. That rolls off the tongue. I like that. That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So, just for my people here, you're talking about career development. Let's see. How do I want to ask this? You got to phrase these things right. If you could give us one piece of game as it relates to career development.
You need a plan. Keyshawn has heard my rants on this. You need a plan. It's like you go to the grocery store, you have a grocery list. At least you have something in your notes app saying, I need some rice, I need some bread, cereal. You need a plan. You don't get in your car to go to a new location without plugging into your GPS app, right? You need a plan. One of the things, because I've worked in several like national roles where I helped political leaders. My last job was with one of the oldest think tanks in the country, where I worked with mayors and their executive leadership teams and helping them design equitable career pathway opportunities for historically under-resourced communities. And one of the things in that work, I was working with a lot of like key stakeholder groups. So it would be presidents of universities, presidents of community colleges, superintendents of school districts, CEOs of workforce development boards, CEOs of corporations. And one of the things that I heard all the time, even before I got in that role, was people saying, oh, when it comes to your career, just figure it out. No, we are not just figuring it out, because I've seen the actual effects of just figuring it out in that workforce development center that I worked in on the front lines. We're not figuring it out. You need a plan. The plan will change, understand that, but on a basic level, you need to be clear as to what is the goal that you're working towards, so you then can make well-informed decisions to get you there. Because without a plan, that's how you end up with multiple unrelated degrees, with multiple certifications that you don't use because there was no plan in place. Or you end up years in a job that you don't like because you didn't know, okay, I'm going to get this job based on the job description for the goal job that I want. I only need 2 years here. I'm going to leave after 2 years. There was no plan. So then next thing you look up, you're there for 10 years and you're like, I can't move now. I got all my stuff established. As I'm higher rank here, but I always wanted to do blah, blah, blah. Right. So my thing is, you need a plan. And regardless of what the people tell you, the people, Keyshawn, I don't know if you talk like this on your podcast, the people are lying to you when they tell you you don't need a plan.
Let them know.
Yeah.
That's good. Hey, folks, you need a plan. And look, I'll put the testimonial out there. I've been through Marthea's career accelerator, and she's intentional, she's thorough, easy to understand, and she knows how to create a community. Right? It's not just her being the sole teacher. Right? You're learning from others in the accelerator as well. And so, if you're out there and you're stuck in your job, okay, you're wondering, you're thinking about that dream. Okay, this is my commercial. All right, you're thinking about that dream, something bigger that you want to do, but you don't know how to get there. You want to make a plan, but you don't know how to make that plan. Marthea's Career Accelerator.
I love it. I'm gonna snag this. Yes,
snag that, please.
I love it, Keyshawn. Thank you.
No, that's good stuff. Yeah, no, that's so good. So, right, as we kind of close out the conversation, I always like to talk about and look towards the future. We understand, Marthea, the importance and the impact that historically Black colleges and universities have made on us. We understand their overall impact on various levels. So some people don't, unfortunately, right? We look at underfunding, under-resourcing. Many HBCUs have closed, some have closed and reopened. When we think about how do we continue to preserve and elevate HBCUs, where does your mind go?
Well, one of my classes, I learned about like endowments and of course the glaring difference between endowments at HBCUs and majority serving institutions. And then also I learned about like the importance of alumni giving back and all of the different things. Putting my little twist on it would be, let's focus heavy on ensuring that every student in HBCUs has a clear pathway established to get into their career and get to the highest paying role they can within a sustainable amount of time, so they then have more money to give back to the university. Like, I think we could create our own fix just by intentional career development, because of course at FAMU, alumni are the biggest givers of the universities. Yeah, I would like to see more intentional at all HBCUs, more intentional career pathway design, career planning conversations. That way people have the money to give back.
Yeah. No, that's really good. And so, right, that's part of it. And then when you think about, so for me, my target audience right now, I'm targeting the young kids, right? You talked about having these career conversations in middle school. You know, for intents and purposes, sometimes I'm even looking younger than that, like elementary school. And so my vision is, Marthea, if we can get elementary school kids and their parents interested in HBCUs, I think it puts pressure on the powers that be to ensure that these institutions are built up and elevated, right, in a way that can speak to where the world is going, right, AI and things of that nature. So if you had to, I don't want to frame this question. If you had to give some insight into how we could teach the younger generation about your dream doesn't have to just stay a dream, but it can become your reality, what would you say?
I always say, well, my skill is that I help people reimagine their careers. And so I always tell people you can do whatever you say you want to do. And that's the much larger like root cause issues where students are getting very, oh goodness, don't get me in my soapbox, getting very bias type conversations where, oh no, you should do this. This is more, or not even getting conversations about larger careers. I've been telling people this story. I went on a platform recently to see just like what are some conversations that middle school career exploration teachers are having with students. Keyshawn, I saw this teacher.
Oh boy.
She had a career day, and career day consisted of Waffle House. And she was making waffles in the front of the classroom, and she had brought Waffle House hats. And in the picture, it was boys that looked like me with Waffle House hats on. And that was the full rest of the career day. And so I wanted to leave with your audience that you can do whatever you want to do. If you love to draw, you can get a career in drawing. There's people making money. You may have to have like a different approach to it, right? That's what I help people do. Like think of what is another angle we can go at. So maybe that will look like you drawing. I recently learned about draftsmen. I was coaching someone who's a draftsman, where what she does is she works with realtors and she draws the drafts of like what they're going to be doing with the house and the additions. It's the person who's in addition to the architect. So maybe you're like, okay, I don't really want to go to full-blown 4-year degree, whatever the thing is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're like, science is not my thing. I don't know what all it takes for an architect. But there's other avenues. But even more than that, one time I was visiting a city on a site visit as a part of my last job. It was in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I don't know if you know anything about Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Sounds
a lot that goes on in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And so I was downtown and we were on our way to the mayor's office, and on the side of the buildings, there was a lot of murals. They were beautiful murals. And now we're on our way to the mayor's office to talk about how can you create better career opportunities for the youth and engage them. And my question was, like, you should be having my statement was you need to be having conversations with the youth around who formulates the paint color, like the actual, not mixing the paint like at Home Depot. Who creates those colors? Because someone who's an artist who loves to draw, who loves to paint, could go get a job creating paint colors in a lab somewhere. Hey, instead of painting on the side of the building, you could go take your art there. So I just really want to leave with people. You can do whatever you want to do. You may just need to find creative ways. And where people, what you have to fight against is people telling you it's not possible, but it is. That's how, again, I'm talking to your audience because you said their earlier years. It's a lot of adults who are not happy in their jobs because they believed what people told them when they were little and who said it wasn't possible. You can do whatever you want to do. You just need to do a little research to figure out how to make that happen. And the other thing that I would say is don't ever settle. If your heart is on doing music, it's creative ways to do music and get paid for it. If your heart is to be a scientist, your dream to be a scientist, you can do that. You may have to move away from your city or your hometown to go to college to be in a degree program that can help you with that. But anything is.
What more can I say, folks? We've heard of the land of opportunity. We are living in the era of opportunity. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. Reimagining is the way of the future. And if you can push through, as Marthea says, the noise of the doubters and stay and keep your eyes on the prize, there's a better future waiting out there for you. Marthea, thanks so much for taking time to chat with my audience here today. I know they learned something. I know I learned something. And I feel even more empowered than ever to just go out there and create the future that's destined for me, that I know I can create. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Your work is tremendous. Every time I log in, Keyshawn is going hardcore about HBCUs. I said, okay, subject matter expert, educate the people, check the data points. Let us know. I love it. So I already see the big picture. I'm all for it. I can't wait to see you on some stages, talking to the youth, doing your thing, advocating on a national level for your work. But keep up the great work.
Thank you, Marthea. Thank you all for listening and watching. We'll see you on the next one.